Welcome back into the Chris
Welcome
Mathis
aboard.
podcast. It's been almost a month since our last podcast. May 10th was our last one. Been a crazy ride here as of late with new job, Spencer getting out of school for the summer. I've had a couple of things going on with family. We've done a couple of trips up to one trip up to North Florida. Mom came down here to Tampa. So a lot of things going on. And I know this is kind of a long hiatus since our last podcast. So the return is back to the weekly stuff right here on TCM Pod, and glad to have you guys with us. Excuse the beach hair. I just don't care. That's what one person would say. Spencer's rolling with a Bolts hat following a huge Game 3 victory against the New York Rangers. We'll talk more about that here in a few moments. Also talk some NBA Finals, Ryan Fitzpatrick retiring from the NFL, and much more right here in the TCM Pod, the Chris Mathis podcast. First and foremost, have to start off the show with a shout out to our guy, Joe Mancuso, quarterback that played at the high school that I went to school at. We both graduated class of 2016. He went off to the University of Richmond, had a great 6-year career there as a Spider. Since our last podcast, talking within the last 2.5 weeks, he signed with the Canadian football team, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So Joseph Mancuso is officially playing professional football. And a great opportunity for the 24-year-old who, again, is living out a dream and still has hopes of playing in the NFL someday. So this is a great stepping stone for him to see what he can do in the CFL. And Spence, you know a little bit about CFL. The Blue Bombers, a dominant team. I think they've won 2 straight championships in the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, the Blue Bombers are a spinoff of the New York Jets, obviously. That's a joke, but it's actually super cool that he's getting an opportunity in Canada. Maybe he can pick up a Canadian accent, maybe some words. I'm excited to see him and maybe make a trip up to Canada at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Paul McBride's going to line that for us. I'll have to get a Mancuso jersey once he's deemed starter. If he's deemed the starter this year, time will tell. We'll keep you guys posted on that. Also, Mancuso welcomed in a beautiful baby boy to the world, I think about a week and a half ago. So Joe and his girlfriend bring in JJ. It's pretty exciting stuff there. And Joe's now a dad. He's playing professional football. It's crazy. I graduated high school with this guy, and here he is doing big things on the field and off the field too. So,
and if that baby grows up in Canada, maybe he could just have a very strong Canadian accent, be a strong Canadian person, become a shipyard worker or something cool. See if he can make his way into the sports analyst world like Gumpy.
Yeah, Gumpy from the Pat McAfee show. Time will tell. But anyways, exciting things there. And you can check out our Talk to Him Tuesday interview that we had with Joe a little over a month and a half, 2 months ago, talking about his journey in college football and trying to make it to the NFL or play pro football. We talk a lot of things there regarding his preparation, his work ethic, his style, his prep that goes into getting ready for any and every game. A lot of cool stuff there. Another guest we had on Talk to Him Tuesday a little bit over a month ago was Seth McCoy, the infamous Seth McCoy from TikTok at 6Shooter. And last time we spoke to him right here on the podcast, I think he had 115 consecutive threes within that range of 110 to 115. He just hit 144 consecutive three-pointers on a live video. You could take a camera to me, and I could spend 8 hours a day for the next 5 days and try to make 144 total, not even consecutive, total three-pointers, and I would not do that. So just because I'm that bad, but this guy is that good, 144 straight on live camera. Go check out his TikTok at 6Shooter. The link is in the bio, and really cool stuff there. He also hit 200,000 followers on TikTok as well, Spence.
Yeah, I get on TikTok about once a day, and I always stumble upon a Seth McCoy video, and I'll watch, and he'll make like 50 in a row, finally miss one. Then he'll go again. People will comment consecutively that it's a loop. He shows them that it's not a loop. His mom's out there rebounding for him all the time. It's really cool to see, especially now that he's done with college. He's back home for the summer in Ohio. So anytime I stumble upon his TikTok live, I'll watch.
Yeah, no doubt. And everybody knows of Seth McCoy at this point. People reach out, hey, I know what gym he's shooting at. And I'm pretty sure he's getting bombarded with fans wanting autographs. And he's even got a cool shooting program out there as well, 6Shooter Academy. Go check that out. I want to really delve into that here this summer when my schedule frees up a little bit. And Spence, I know you have access to that as well. And you tried it out, and you said you had a good game a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I've been absolutely going down to the rec gym in Blairsville, Georgia, and dominating, winning a lot of 21 games versus 12 and 13-year-olds. But doesn't matter. I mean, I'm still winning, and that's all that matters, baby.
Yeah, no doubt. You have to be ruthless, and Seth
Yep.
McCoy is ruthless. Go check out at Six Shooter and check out the at Six Shooter Academy. But with the return of the Chris Mathis podcast, brings back our read for information on demand pre-employment background screening services. They offer fast, accurate, and affordable background screening services, whether you need criminal background checks, drug screenings, e-verify, academic accreditations, or other services. They've got you covered. You can rest easy knowing a highly trained search team will get you the information you need in just 8 hours or less. That's information on demand. They're fast, accurate, and affordable pre-employment background screening services. Give them a call today, 855-914-4636, or visit them at informationondemand.net. That's informationondemand.net. Click the link in the bio below for more information to get that link straight to the website, informationondemand.net, as they bring you guys the big three. And let's start off with some NBA Finals talk. The Golden State Warriors going head-to-head with the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. I don't even care about what the record is right now. As the recording of this podcast, we're getting set for Game 2. Boston leads 1-0 over the Warriors in this Finals. As of the recording, it could be Game 3 right now, and I could care less. It's not changing my prediction. So, my series prediction, and it's not a hot take by any means, Warriors in 7, simply because of the experience that all of those guys have. Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, of course, Steve Kerr as well. A lot of playoff experience, a lot of NBA Finals experience. And the Boston Celtics, they had nobody on their roster heading into Game 1 with any NBA Finals experience until Game 1 of this series. And Al Horford was a big-time performer in that game. He actually led the way for the Boston Celtics in that Game 1 victory. And how many times can you rely on a 36-year-old to take over the game? I know he's consistent, but to be that guy and lead your team to a victory too often, not, obviously doesn't happen a lot unless his name is LeBron James or somebody of that nature. But Al Horford led the way. I think that Jason Tatum shot 3 of 17 from the field that day. Still had quite a number of assists and rebounds, but the Celtics have to shoot the ball well every single game moving forward in order to pick up another victory against a very good shooting team in the Golden State Warriors. And again, this is going to be one of those games where the Warriors have to really get down low and try to attack the paint. Steph Curry's done a better job of that this season. His three-point shot accuracy and percentage is down a little bit compared to the last couple of seasons. And when I say down, it's still high 39, low 40%, but a couple of years ago it was at 43%. So Steph Curry's having to work inside, and he's doing so. He's not so scared of the contact anymore. He's driving down to the lane when needed. And that's why I think the Warriors win this series in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics. Now, who am I pulling for? I'm pulling for the Boston Celtics. I just don't think that their experience allows for a victory in this NBA Finals.
Yeah, watching Game 1 on Thursday night, I mean, you watched Steph Curry put up like 24 points in the first quarter, made 6 or 7 3-pointers. And then after that, from that point on, really the Celtics started to play actual defense. And I think that could have been part of their game plan, to let Steph cook early on and then make them think that they're going to be able to run this same offense with Steph just running around the court, working off screens, getting wide open shots. But after that first quarter, I mean, Steph Curry ended the game with, I think, 33 total points, something around there. So the Boston Celtics defense was suffocating in the second half. Going into the fourth quarter, the Celtics were down by 12, I believe, to the Warriors. And then I'm pretty sure they outscored the Warriors 40-16 in the fourth. And that was a lot due to three-pointers. I mean, they were splashing from downtown the entire fourth quarter without the help of Jason Tatum. I mean, Tatum was taking wide open shots, missing over and over again. Then he would get a rebound, shoot again, miss. Finally, he learned to just dish it out, get some assists and rebounds. But Jason Tatum had a poor game. The Celtics still win. So that does give me hope for the Celtics. I mean, they're ahead in the series 1-0 going into Sunday night's game. That'll be done by the time we post this podcast. But if Jason Tatum can pick up his play and the supporting cast can continue to shoot threes from downtown, even Al Horford's making threes. He's shooting 40% from behind the arc this playoff, which is insane. So the Celtics have a shot, of course. I mean, they're up 1-0 as of right now in this series, but I still got the Warriors in 7. I just don't believe that the Celtics supporting cast is going to be able to shut down the Warriors if they're going against the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green line. Also, that young three-point shooter that they had that really made his mark this season. But I just don't see the Celtics being able to splash from downtown like they did in the fourth quarter, where they put up 40 points versus the Warriors on Thursday night. And if they're not going to be able to splash from downtown and Jason Tatum doesn't pick up his game, Warriors are going to win this before game 7. But either way, I've got the Warriors in 7 in this series. And maybe, I mean, I could see the Celtics going up 2-0 in this series and still losing.
Yeah, again, and you're talking about Jason Tatum and his shooting struggles in game 1. 3 of 17 from the field. He still finished with 12 points, 13 assists. So you look at a great supporting cast. I think that they were able to have such a spread offense because Tatum was not shooting the ball well. He realized, hey, I have to step up. I'm not going to keep putting my team in a hole and shoot the ball and miss. Let me pass the ball to my teammates. And that's what he did. So now you're looking at game 2 and moving forward. Is Tatum going to think, hey, let me get back in the scoring column and take over? And then you look at Al Horford scoring less than 20 points. He scored 26 in game 1. Also looking here at White. White scored 21 when Jason Tatum was struggling from the field. So in a game where Jason Tatum feels like, hey, I've got the hot hand, even if he doesn't have the hot hand, he just thinks, I want to shoot. He could really take away from his offense and his team's performance because Al Horford isn't going to be able to shoot 12 times from the field if he's not getting the ball, 15 different times like he did when Jason Tatum was struggling in game 1. So personally, I feel like Jason Tatum could be a detrimental factor here in game 2 and game 3 if he's trying to step up and think, hey, let me show them I can hit more than 3 shots. He could take away from his team's offensive performance. But at the same time, the guy said he'll do whatever it takes to win. So moving forward, he said if he shoots just 3 of 17 from the field, that doesn't matter as long as they win. But how many times in the series can that happen?
I mean, the subs aren't going to be able to pick up the slack the entire time. And the Celtics right now with Jason Tatum are basically in the same spot that the team that they just beat, the Miami Heat, were in the previous series that the Celtics won in game 7. I mean, you had Jimmy Butler had a couple of bad games, then he put up 40, and then game 7, he was absent once more. So it really does come down to your star players, and the Warriors have way many more star players than the Boston Celtics. They've got 3 in their starting lineup. Celtics have 2 max. And if Jason Tatum continues to shoot 3 for 17 from the field, regardless of what he says, I mean, they're not going to win.
Klay Thompson went 6 of 14 from the field, just 15 points. Draymond Green, 2 of 12. So I'm not sure how many times you can rely on Al Horford and White to score more than 20 points. And on top of that, hope for Draymond Green and Klay Thompson to struggle as a duo or have Steph Curry struggle. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're the Celtics, what do you feel more confident in? If your supporting cast is playing well or if Draymond Green and Klay Thompson are struggling, what do you feel like gives you the best chance to win moving forward?
Obviously, if your supporting cast is playing as well as they have been, but Tatum has got to pick up his play. But the good thing that the Celtics have going for them is they're a very good defensive team, and that's what's got them down into the finals here versus the Warriors, which gives them a great shot if they can continue to play as they do. They have the best rebounder in the league over this previous season, and I think he had 11 or 12 rebounds in game 1. So if they can continue to grab boards off missed shots, three-point shots that don't ricochet back to Warriors players, I think they have a good shot. I mean, I could definitely see the Celtics winning, but if Jason Tatum doesn't pick up his play, or if Tatum does pick up his play, but the supporting cast loses their ability to hit three-pointers all game long like they did in the second half versus the Warriors on game 1, I mean, I just still see the Warriors winning this series because this is probably the worst game you're going to get out of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. I don't see them playing this poorly again. You said Draymond Green went 2 for 12 from the field. I don't see that happening again.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, talking about the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors, I don't know. I just think that when people think of this series, they think of the Boston Celtics. They think of a very physical defensive team like we saw 8, 10, 11 years ago when they were in the finals, I think twice in a 4-year span, something like that. Kevin Garnett was there, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. They were physical. The game's changed a lot since then. So even though I have a misconception of great defense here with the Boston Celtics, it's a total different game. And I think when it does come to a shootout, of course, the Golden State Warriors are the team to beat.
Yeah, I've got Warriors in 7. You've got Warriors in 7. I think that's really going to be set in stone. Even if the Celtics do take a 2-0 lead in this series, I still see the Warriors winning this series.
Been a great postseason from the NBA Finals in particular, not leading up to the NBA Finals, but the NBA Finals solely in particular with the NBA and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Those have been fun to watch all the way through. 12 overtime games so far this postseason in the NHL. And of course, our Tampa Bay Lightning are still alive, still kicking in hopes of winning the Eastern Conference Finals. But looking over in the Western Conference Finals, the Colorado Avalanche up 3-0 over the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton was my pick to go to the Stanley Cup out of the West. And I know it was a stretch because they just have Connor McDavid. But still, I was hoping that they would do so. They're down 3-0. They've been outscored 18 goals to just 8 so far. They lost to game 1, 8-6. It was one of those games in which I think there were 4 goals scored within 8 minutes, an 8-minute span. And then they lost 4-0 to Colorado in game 2, and then 4-2 in game 3 to Colorado. So not much to rely on here other than the fact that the Colorado Avalanche will win this series. And on top of that, they've come back 7 times this postseason. On the chart, of course, as one of the best postseason runs of all time in terms of comebacks. 7 comebacks this season. They joined just 23 other NHL teams to have 7 or more comebacks in NHL history in one postseason.
Yeah, and anytime you have a guy like Cale Makar back there in your defensive line, if you're down and he's playing up at the blue line, not playing back like a normal defenseman, I mean, you've got a chance to score goals. He's probably one of the best stick handlers or puck handlers I've seen as a defenseman in recent years. He's like a juiced up Victor Hedman, in my opinion. He's not as good on the defensive end as Hedman, but in terms of pure goal scoring ability and assists and all that good stuff, I think he's the best defenseman left in the playoffs right now in terms of all around play. But Hedman, of course, the best defensive defenseman in the league, still remaining in the playoffs, not in the league. I don't think he's going to win the Norris this season. But, I mean, the Oilers, they had their opportunities in game 1 and game 2. I mean, in game 1 and game 3, they squandered both of them because their goalie, Mike Smith, is an absolute stooge. I mean, if you watch Mike Smith play, it's just, you know he's going to give up the easiest goals. He's going to stop some incredible things because he does backflips in the crease, basically, and hits a lot of pucks out of play and stuff. But he's just such an unconventional goalie. And to play like he does at 40 years old is just wild to me. He's been in the league for at least 15 years now. I mean, he used to be the Tampa Bay Lightning goalie back in the 2012, I believe. It's been a long time since he was a Lightning goalie, but I just don't think you have an opportunity this deep into the playoffs whenever you have Mike Smith in net. And I'm not saying the Avalanche goalie isn't very much better. He's not that good either, but anytime you're going against Mike Smith and you have Nathan McKinnon attacking the goal, you have Cale Makar attacking the goal, I mean, you've got a great opportunity to win. That's why they're up 3-0, and they're probably going to end that series tomorrow in game 4, a sweep, which is good for whoever in the Eastern Conference is going into the Stanley Cup final, because you saw the Lightning. I mean, they swept the Panthers in the previous round, and the Rangers, coming off a 7-game series, came in and took an early 2-0 lead over the Bolts. The Bolts won today or Sunday on a game-winning goal with 52 seconds left or so by Andre Palat to keep them in this series, and I think they've got the momentum right now. Of course, you're in Tampa, so you always have that going for you. I think hockey is probably the best home field advantage or home ice advantage of any sport, or maybe the NBA. You've got an opportunity in the NBA as well, but you never know that when a series is over until your team has gone down 2-0, then they lose that one home game and they go down 3-0. That's series over. So anytime you win a home game, you got a chance to continue rocking in this series. And I've got the Bolts and Avalanche still going strong into the finals. That was my pick at the beginning of this run, and that's my pick still going on. I've got the Lightning in 7 versus the Rangers.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Colorado closes out game 4, because you guys can go ahead and write that down. Go ahead and call your bookie. Let everybody know that you're taking the Avalanche in 4 games. And you talk about Mike Smith, goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers. There's been some times this year where he didn't look so hot as well in the regular season, but their offensive output was so good. 5 goals to 3 goals is going to win the game no matter what. But now when you're playing against a team like the Colorado Avalanche, a team that's well-rounded, they're very quick, a good defensive team, and obviously they score some goals too. 18 goals scored in just 3 games here in the Western Conference Finals. You really get exposed if you have a guy like Mike Smith, a 40-year-old goaltender who was a weak link on the Oilers team throughout the season. And now when you're playing against a top-tier A1 team, it really exposes your goaltender. And that's exactly what the case has been for Edmonton this postseason, or at least in this Western Conference Finals. Now, moving over to the Eastern Conference Finals, we're looking at a pretty interesting series. You talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had swept the Florida Panthers coming into the series, and the Rangers went head-to-head. They went to 7 games their last series, had 2 days off, went into game 1 against the Lightning after the Lightning had 9 days off. And Tampa Bay lost 6-2 in game 1 to the Rangers. Rangers win game 2, 3-2. And then here earlier this afternoon, the Lightning pick up their first win of the Eastern Conference Finals in game 3, 3-2 the final score. So Spence, obviously game 1 was a shit show for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was a great performance there by the New York Rangers. Game 2 was closer. I felt like we saw a good push there in the third period by the Lightning, but nothing sold me to think that they would come into this game today and score a last-second goal to win the game. I think 41 seconds left on the clock. What was the biggest difference in game 3 and game 1 and 2 for the Tampa Bay Lightning today, Spence?
Well, game 1, I mean, I went into that game knowing that the Lightning were going to lose. 9 days off for a goalie, even if he's one of the best goalies in NHL history, is never a good sign. And that's why I think if the Colorado Avalanche sweep the Edmonton Oilers here, they're going to lose the Stanley Cup final to whoever makes it out of the East, if it's the Rangers or the Lightning. But anytime you have 9 days off as a starting goalie, you're going to lose game 1. Game 2, the Lightning played well. I mean, they went down 2-1, gave up that final goal, and that was it. I mean, we had a push in the end, made it 3-2 with like 50 seconds left, almost scored a game tire to go into overtime. Took that momentum into game 3. First period, no goals for either squad. And then the second period of that game, the refs handed the Rangers a goal and 2 power plays that they scored on both of. They went up 2-0. Then the Lightning from there on, Kucherov scored a goal, and then Stamkos tied it up at 2 in the third. And then with 50 seconds or so to go, Andre Palat buried one on Kucherov's little tip and go pass to Palat along the right wing, which was absolutely incredible because Kucherov, although he is probably the best passer in the entire NHL, he's also the dumbest passer in the entire NHL. I mean, this guy, he's got to lead the NHL right now in playoff turnovers, but whenever he's on, he's gonna feed his players for goals, and you saw that in the Florida Panthers series whenever he fed the goal to win the game with like 1 second left to put the Lightning up 3-0 in that series. So Kucherov is really the deciding factor for me in this game. I mean, he came out of the game, I don't know if you got to see the first period, but he came out of the game on fire. He had 2 breakaway attempts, was stopped both times by Igor Shesterkin, who's the second best goalie in the NHL. Even he said that after game 2's W. He said Vasilevsky's still the best goalie in the league, and he proved it today. But Igor is a stud, and it's going to be tough for the Lightning to win these games whenever they go back to New York, because Game 7 is going to be in New York. It's going to be tough to win that one. This game's definitely not going to be decided in 6, but Igor is an absolute stud. These last couple of games are going to all be dogfights, but I had the Lightning coming out of it in 7.
And for those that didn't take our advice a little over a month ago and have yet to watch a Stanley Cup playoff game, how would you sell them? What series would you tell them to watch? Would you tell them to watch both the Lightning and Rangers series and the Avalanche and Oilers series on Monday night? Or would you just say, hey, watch the Lightning and Rangers series? This will sell you guys to follow a team throughout the playoff run.
Yeah, well, going into the Oilers Avalanche series, I really thought that was going to be the series to watch. I mean, both of those teams are high-scoring teams with shitty goalies, and so far it's really just been Colorado just absolutely taking down the Oilers easily. McDavid, really their only player that's going to be able to create anything whenever you're having to play defense the entire game. And then you do play defense, and Mike Smith lets an easy one go by to lose the game. I mean, it's tough for the Oilers. They're down 3-0. They're going to get swept. I would say tune into the Lightning game on Tuesday. They're down in the series 2-1 to the Rangers. I really do believe that one's going to go to 7 games. I would tune into that. That's 2 of the best goalies going against each other. They should be low-scoring games. I'm sure that the rest of these games are going to be within 1 or 2 goals, and it's not going to be over 5 goals again like you saw in game 1. But, yeah, I would say tune in the Lightning game. Pick a team. You could pick the Rangers or the Lightning. I think whoever wins the East is going to win the entire thing. They're going to beat Colorado in the Stanley Cup final.
What makes you think that Colorado is kind of a fad and not really good enough to beat an Eastern Conference team, either the Rangers or the Lightning?
Well, they're just not as physical as the Eastern Conference teams. I mean, you see the Rangers, they're not as physical as the Lightning are, but they are more physical than the Avalanche. They have a way better goalie. And in the NHL playoffs, you have to have good defense, and you have to be able to win the dogfight games. And Colorado's a team that can score a lot, but you saw the Florida Panthers get swept by the Lightning, and they were the highest scoring team in NHL history. So it doesn't really matter if you can score in the playoffs. You got to be able to make defensive plays. You got to be able to just have tip goals. You can't be doing anything flashy in the playoffs. I mean, you're not going to get the opportunities because players step up on defense in the NHL playoffs. And I just don't think the Avalanche have what it takes. And a lot of NHL analysts think the same thing just because they're not as physical as either of these Eastern Conference teams.
Again, Spencer Mathis breaking down the NHL Stanley Cup playoff run between the Colorado Avalanche, Edmonton Oilers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning and New York Rangers in the Eastern Conference. So we're going to see how this all plays out. Closing out the Big Three segment with some talk about Stranger Things and Top Gun. We have 1 minute each to kind of break that down. You have 1 minute, Spence. You can see that timer in the top left screen. So whenever you're ready to go, you have 1 minute from the time that you start talking to the time that you end your review without spoiling. So if you guys have yet to see Stranger Things Season 4 or Top Gun, just know we're not going to necessarily spoil any scenes or any endings. But if you feel scared and you're sitting on the edge of your seat or you're driving, skip ahead 2 minutes total, starting right now.
We're not going to spoil anything, but this season of Stranger Things was definitely the best season out of all of them. I've got in rank 4, 1, 3, and 2, 2 being the worst season because of the 8 plot line that no one cared about. But this season's incredible. I really do recommend tuning in. You get to see a full Demogorgon go do its work in this season. You get to see how powerful that thing is. And then the biggest plot twist I've seen in any TV show in recent memory was absolutely incredible. You've got to tune in. It's very suspenseful. It's definitely the darkest season, and it's pretty gruesome. Like some scenes I have to look away whenever one of those guys are getting crippled into just twisted like a pretzel and their eyes getting gouged out. It's pretty gruesome. But Freddy Krueger actually makes an appearance in this season. He plays Victor Creel in the insane asylum that was filmed at Berry College, which is pretty cool to me as well. So Stranger Things shot in Georgia. If you're from Georgia, you got to watch Stranger Things. I don't know how you haven't seen it. It's been out since 2016. Go tune in now.
Again, and that's Stranger Things review. Here's my Stranger Things Season 4 review. So far, the first, I guess you could call it half of Season 4, right? Because they're coming out with 3 more episodes in July.
They've released 7 so far. They've got 2 more coming out, and the first one's an hour 15, like all of these episodes, and then the last one is 2.5 hours. So it's basically a movie.
So Stranger Things Season 4 was a lot of fun to watch. One of those series where I started, and Spence and I, we watched the first 2 episodes together back-to-back nights. And then after he went back to North Georgia and I stayed in Tampa, I watched one every single night for the next 4 nights or 5 nights until I got through all 7. And like Spence said, pretty gruesome. But the amount of creativity in the show this season was bar none. Also, the plot twists were insane, too. I thought that the characters stepped up. Some characters that didn't have a huge role last year stepped up and have a bigger role this season. And then other characters that had big roles in the past are now irrelevant, at least for the time being, the first half of Season 4. So Stranger Things is out now on Netflix. It sounds like we're plugging Stranger Things. We're not paid by Stranger Things, unfortunately. We just love the show. Spence, Top Gun, new movie just came out. What are your thoughts in a minute or less?
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick, Top Gun 2, whatever you want to call it. It was better than the original. I do believe it's better than the original. The stakes were at an all-time high. I mean, even the new pilots, I thought that I wasn't going to like the new pilots at all, but they actually were pretty good. They were good characters, especially the guy that played Goose, Miles Teller. Looks exactly like the original guy that Tom Cruise flew with, which was really cool to see. I mean, I don't know how they got a guy that looks exactly like him, but I mean, this movie was incredible. I don't know how to say anything else without spoiling it, but I would definitely recommend you go see this movie in IMAX over anything else because it is incredible whenever they're showing the jet scenes flying, a lot of planes blowing up and shit. It's pretty wicked.
That's the 3rd time we've said shit on the podcast. That makes 4 now. But yeah, Top Gun, I'm going to call it Top Gun 2. I don't like calling it Maverick, but Top Gun 2 was awesome. I give it a 9.3 on a scale of 1 to 10 on the Chris Mathis scale of reviews because my 9.3 is probably different than Spencer's 9.3 or, of course, your 9.3 as you guys drive in your car right now. So take it with a grain of salt, but this movie was great. Top Gun 1 was good, but it wasn't something I'd go watch again, to be honest with you. Saw Top Gun 2. Loved it. Saw it in IMAX over the weekend, and I think it's a movie I'd buy and watch in 10, 15 years. A little bit more emotional than I thought. I say that because there was a true story to it from start to finish. It had a interesting ending. I'm not going to spoil anything other than that. That's it. Interesting ending. And that's our little rundown of Stranger Things Season 4 and Top Gun 2, a.k.a. Top Gun Maverick. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 17-year NFL quarterback, has officially retired from the game. Some people know him as Ryan Fitzmagic for his time in Tampa Bay. On the screen right now is a picture of him in the Bucs locker room following a great performance. I can't remember what game that was, but that was the game in which he was doing a post-game press conference, and Deshaun Jackson walks into the room and says, "Hey, give me back my necklace, this and that, and you look good in my shades." And Ryan Fitzmagic, after 17 years, of course, he played at Harvard. He's a Harvard graduate. He's officially retired from the NFL.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick gave the Buccaneers their best game that they had seen in 10 years whenever he beat the New Orleans Saints in 2018 Week 1, putting up like 47 points versus the Saints. Mike Evans and him had a great connection, and he was the only Buccaneers quarterback that could seem to hit Deshaun Jackson. I mean, Jameis Winston couldn't do it, but Ryan Fitzpatrick to Deshaun Jackson those first 3 weeks of that 2018 season was an absolutely incredible thing to watch. And I think the final thought of Ryan Fitzpatrick for me is, if you were a starting quarterback in the NFL at any point and Ryan Fitzpatrick was signed to your team, you had the Madden curse, basically. You're going to go down. Fitzpatrick's going to take your job, get paid, and you're gone. You're gone. You're to the wayside. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick had one of the greatest NFL careers in terms of just watching as a fan. It was super cool to watch. And then that right there, you see Ryan Fitzpatrick wearing Deshaun Jackson stuff after that huge win against the New Orleans Saints in 2018 after the Jameis Winston 3-game suspension. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, think you should have stayed one more season, gone to the Cleveland Browns, because Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended this year and probably the whole season now that we've seen the 24th allegation come out. 24th now.
24th.
Yeah. So I think Fitzpatrick hung it up 1 year too early, could have gone to the Browns, because Baker Mayfield has absolutely burned every bridge back to Cleveland.
Yep, he has. Great point.
If he would have gone back to the Cleveland Browns for one more season, I would have loved to see that, but he's gone. A lot of people are asking if he's a Hall of Fame candidate. I definitely say no, he's not a Hall of Fame
candidate. Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, same thing with Julian Edelman. A lot of people were asking if Julian Edelman was a Hall of Fame candidate just based off of his postseason career. I also say no to that. There's a lot of players that just haven't gotten into the Hall of Fame that definitely deserve to be in. Rondé Barber, the number one off the top of my head, should be in the Hall of Fame. Corey Nickerson could be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But Ryan Fitzpatrick retiring is a sad thing to see for NFL fans. Retired on the same day as Frank Gore, too. And those were two of the top players of the 2010s in terms of just watching. I mean, Fitzpatrick was never a top 10 quarterback in the league, maybe that 1 year with the Buffalo Bills. But I love Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he's probably a top 5 quarterback of all time for me in terms of playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, again, not too many guys to compete with the Buccaneers. You're talking about Jameis Winston, Josh Freeman, maybe a Jeff Garcia, maybe you're a guy, Brad Johnson, who was on the podcast 3 months ago at this point. But fortunately, that's not the end for Ryan Fitzpatrick in the limelight, as Amazon, there's Fitzpatrick at a playoff game at the Bills Stadium watching a game with random fans. That's not his son. That's just a random Bills fan. It's freezing cold out, but Ryan Fitzpatrick not out of the limelight. Amazon is reaching out to him, and they're trying to come up with a deal to have him either as a sideline reporter or a color commentator. That's something I would tune into. You look at NBC, they're trying to replace Drew Brees with Jason Garrett, formerly the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not tuning in to watch Jason Garrett, but I tell you what, Amazon, I would tune in to watch Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Jason Garrett, the 8-8 merchant. I mean, him and Jeff Fisher. You have Jason Garrett, the 8-8 man, and you have Jeff Fisher, the 7-9 man. Jeff Fisher's where he should be, coaching in an off NFL league. I don't think he should be back in the NFL. I don't think he should be allowed in a booth. Jason Garrett, same thing with him, but Drew Brees also sucked. Drew Brees was an awful analyst. The only thing they let him do was run the Notre Dame games that no one would watch. He was the commentator for Notre Dame. He's just not good in the booth. He's not built for that. And apparently he's an asshole off the field. So I'm not a big Drew Brees fan, even on the field. So I don't know if I like this or not, because Jason Garrett was one of the worst coaches that I've seen in terms of putting up an 8-8 season with the talent that he had surrounded with him on the Dallas Cowboys, with all the money they were spending in the 2010s and just not being able to win a championship. They haven't won one since the 90s. I don't want to see Jason Garrett or Drew Brees in the booth. I hope we get someone else. So maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I don't want to hear Jason Garrett in the booth. He's an awkward guy, and people always talked about that. You see him on NFL Network or NBC or ABC, whatever it was, whatever sporting channel, whatever channel was trying to cover, network was covering the game, they'd always cut to Jason Garrett, and he's one of the most awkward coaches I've ever seen in my life. I can only imagine having to be the play-by-play guy for Jason Garrett and have him just hop on and say the most blatant, obvious comment. Yeah, Dak Prescott, he's pretty good. I drafted him. Something like that. Something just so cringeworthy. So Jason Garrett, I will not be watching you unless you happen to be, calling a game that is very important, or I'm watching it for another reason. But I'm not tuning in to watch Jason Garrett with NBC. Spence, wrap up the podcast, our return episode with Ryan Day, head coach of the Ohio State football team, and his comments about the NIL.
Yeah, the NIL, now that college football players, athletes can take money whenever they go to a college, they can be recruited basically with money now. The NIL deals, Ryan Day says that Ohio State is going to need $13 million in NIL money from the sponsors of the school, which is usually alumni, very rich alumni, to be able to compete, is what he said. I mean, which is absolutely incredible. $13 million. He said $2 million for a star quarterback, $1 million for a star offensive tackle or star defensive end, and $2 million again for a star cornerback or receiver. In college football, I mean, it's going to be tough for these bottom teams to compete anymore. I mean, it was already super tough, but now you've got teams like Alabama. They're going to have all the NIL money, and just there's going to be 4 teams basically competing. You got Georgia, Alabama, probably Clemson, and then one other SEC team. I don't think the ACC or the Big Ten is going to be able to compete unless their sponsors can just spill that money out to their teams. I mean, you've got Ohio State, which right now they have the most NIL money. So it's weird for Ryan Day to say this, but
that's why
they're going to be able to compete. I mean, once Saban gets a hand on recruits with money, which has probably already been happening for 10 to 15 years. You saw Jimbo Fisher call him out a couple of days ago. I mean, I think Alabama, as long as Saban's there, they're going to be an unstoppable force, and so are the rest of the SEC teams who make the most money from their football programs. So it's going to be not very fun to watch college football. I mean, I'm already not having a blast with it anyways, but now it's going to be even worse with just 4 teams competing, because these small schools, like you saw UCF a couple of years ago, they're not going to have a chance. They almost made the playoffs. They're done now. There's such a skill gap in college football that just doesn't exist in the NFL, which is absolutely incredible. So it's basically a pay to win thing. It's like EA Sports is running college football now.
Bada bing, bada boom. As for Spencer Mathis, I'm Chris Mathis, back here with the return of the Chris Mathis podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9 yards at TCM_pod. Do not miss out. We'll talk with you guys next week.